In the days before Florida became a global playground, you could buy a three-bedroom house for $30,000, sip fresh orange juice from groves that stretched forever, and cruise Alligator Alley with the air conditioning roaring. Gas just 55 cents a gallon. The Johnsons, like so many families, came for the terrazzo floors, jalousie windows, and the hope of a better, slower Southern life. Then something colossal arrived. Disney's gates opened, condos multiplied on the sand, and the keys to this easygoing paradise began slipping away. What was it really like before everything changed? Step inside the Johnsons' house in 1974, and you'll find terrazzo floors cool under bare feet, coral pink tile in the bathroom, and a living room where rattan chairs creak as kids sprawl out to watch TV. This was a time when a three-bedroom ranch in Orlando or Tampa might run just $28,000, less than 3 years' pay for a teacher or a line cook. Beachfront condos in Fort Lauderdale or Clearwater, with endless Gulf views and salt in the air, sold for $55,000. Or maybe $65,000 if you wanted the top floor. Even in the Keys, a modest home on the water was within reach for a fisherman or a school secretary. You could still pick your own paint, avocado green for the kitchen, turquoise for the kids' room, sunset orange in the den. Jalousie windows cranked open to catch the breeze, and screened-in Florida rooms glowed with the afternoon sun. There were no homeowners' associations to police your choice of mailbox or whether you hung laundry outside. The Johnsons grilled burgers in the backyard, their neighbors waved from breezeways, and most nights the only sound was the whir of the ceiling fan and the distant hum of cicadas. This was a Florida where families like theirs could afford a slice of paradise without a trust fund or a lottery ticket, where the biggest worry was whether the AC would hold through August, not whether you could keep up with the mortgage. Orange groves once lined the roads from Winter Haven to Kissimmee, their sweet scent drifting through open car windows as families cruised past rows of fruit-heavy trees. This was a time when Central Florida was known less for roller coasters and more for crates of Valencia oranges stacked high on trucks bound for juice plants. Gatorland's painted gator jaws greeted travelers on Orange Blossom Trail, and Cypress Gardens dazzled with water ski pyramids and gardens bright with azaleas. Silver Springs drew crowds for glass-bottom boat rides, the riverbed alive with fish and waving grasses. The Kennedy Space Center, still riding the afterglow of the moon landings, stood as the region's biggest draw for out-of-town visitors, its rockets gleaming beside the endless groves. Most weekends, the Johnsons would pile into their Chevrolet station wagon, windows down, and drive the modest strips of Highway 192 or the early International Drive. These roads were lined with neon-signed motels, mom and pop diners, and souvenir stands hawking orange blossom honey and rubber alligators. Church Street Station in downtown Orlando offered live music and a taste of nightlife before theme parks took over. Then, in October 1971, Walt Disney World opened its gates. At first, the place felt experimental, a bold new neighbor rising out of the swamps and groves. But the arrival of Disney's 27,000 acres would set off changes no one could have imagined. Groves gave way to hotels, and the quiet rhythm of citrus towns was replaced by the hum of tourism. For a moment, though, Central Florida still belonged to the growers, the roadside attractions, and families like the Johnsons, savoring the last years before everything changed. South Florida in the 1970s was a place of faded glamour and restless energy. On Collins Avenue, pastel Art Deco hotels lined the street, their neon signs flickering over single-room occupancy buildings where retirees played cards in the salt air. Rents were low, paint peeled, and few imagined these buildings would ever matter to anyone but the elderly and the transient. Preservationists like Barbara Bear Capitman had just begun to see value in the district's crumbling facades. But for most, the hotels were simply relics of a slower era, their future uncertain. A few miles inland, Little Havana was alive with change. After the Cuban Revolution, tens of thousands of families arrived, transforming Miami's core. Calle Ocho buzzed with Spanish, domino games, and the aroma of café cubano drifting from ventanitas. By 1980, Miami's Hispanic population had surged from just over 100,000 to nearly 150,000, shifting the city's pulse toward the Caribbean. Storefronts displayed guayaberas and pastelitos, Latin radio spilled into the street, and traffic rumbled by in old Chevrolets. Fort Lauderdale's spring break brought a tidal wave of college students, radios blaring and cheap beer flowing on crowded beaches. The swap shop on Sunrise Boulevard offered a different kind of spectacle, a sprawling flea market by day and drive-in movies by night. Jai Alai frontons and greyhound tracks echoed with cheers and the sharp crack of the pelota. At Bourdines, shoppers browsed for Florida fashions, while Howard Johnson's and Holiday Inn motor lodges promised orange roofs and free ice. Families like the Johnsons could spend a morning at the beach, an afternoon on Calle Ocho, and end the day with fried shrimp at a local diner. In the 1970s, a paycheck could carry a family from the phosphate pits of Bartow to the sun-soaked bleachers of the Orange Bowl. Mr. Johnson, boots dusted white from a shift at the plant, might spend his earnings on spring training tickets in Clearwater or a weekend fishing trip along the Gulf. Citrus trucks rumbled past, hauling the harvest that filled 8 out of every 10 glasses of orange juice in America. Groves and juice plants kept entire towns working, while phosphate mining around Mulberry and Bartow shaped both the land and the rhythm of daily life. With no state income tax and gas at just 55 cents a gallon, still under $1 by the decade's end, families could fill up the Chevy and head for drive-ins, double features, or the coast without a second thought. Commercial fishing boats pulled shrimp and grouper from Apalachicola to Key West, stocking seafood shacks that lined the sand. On Sundays, the Johnsons joined sunburned crowds at the Orange Bowl, watching Don Shula's Miami Dolphins chase football perfection in 1972. That undefeated season echoed through every living room and radio, a point of pride from Pensacola to Miami. Music drifted out of car windows and tiki bars. Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville became the anthem of 1977, capturing the laid-back spirit of the state. Larry King's voice carried over Miami airwaves, while mainland China in Boca Raton offered a taste of something different for families used to fried shrimp. Drive-ins dotted the highways, bamboo lights glowed, and the good life felt close for anyone willing to work. In the 1970s, Florida felt like a place you could drive into. The Johnsons packed their Ford LTD Country Squire with wood paneling, vinyl seats, and plenty of space, and headed out with the windows down. Alligator Alley, a 2-lane toll road through the Everglades, offered glimpses of sunbathing gators and toll booths staffed by locals collecting quarters by hand. The overseas highway stretched south, its narrow bridges connecting islands where pelicans watched from railings and the water shifted from emerald to blue. On quiet mornings, the only company was the hum of AM radio and the promise of conch fritters in Key West. AR travel opened up as Eastern, National, and Braniff Airlines offered affordable fares from cities like New York and Chicago. Braniff's jets, painted orange and turquoise, stood out on the tarmac. Miami's cruise industry was just beginning, with a few ships sailing to Nassau or San Juan. Gas cost 55 cents a gallon, and the roads felt wide open before congestion changed everything. Most mornings, the Johnsons started their day with the local news, trusting meteorologists like Brian Norcross to steer them through hurricane season. No panic, just calm advice, the kind you believed. Air conditioning ran steady, a quiet luxury that made Florida's summers livable and let families settle in for good. Grocery trips meant a stop at Publix, where the slogan promised shopping was a pleasure, and it really was. Fresh orange juice in the cooler, friendly cashiers who remembered your name. Beaches stretched open and free. No resort fences or parking meters, just sand and sea for anyone willing to make the drive. Neon signs beckoned from motels along A1A, their glow promising a clean room and maybe a kidney-shaped pool out back. Yet not everyone shared in these comforts. In many towns, segregation still shaped where you could swim, eat, or rent a room. Black families faced closed doors at certain hotels, and casual racism lingered in daily routines. At the same time, whispers of trouble grew louder. Environmental warnings about vanishing wetlands, polluted springs, and coastline lost to unchecked building. The good life in Florida always carried a price, even if it wasn't visible from the breezeway. Now, beachfront condos list for 7 figures, and the old orange groves are subdivisions. Yet the memory of turquoise motels, Publix deli smells, and gas at 55 cents a gallon lingers. What Florida preserves, and what it lets slip away, still shapes who gets to call this place home. Share your memories below.